around here. There's a bunch of crooks around here. You ain't supposed to be in that jail, boy. Get over there, man. No, that's supposed to know, man. If I come in.
Is my salary going up?
The Bahamian people got to wake up.
This is my 5 cents and I approve this message.
Web shops legislation and regulations coming next week. This as the AG expresses confidence banks will take web shop money. The state minister for national security says there should be consequences for MPs who fail to disclose, plus independence plans revealed. We've got those stories and a whole lot more tonight. I'm Vonnie Toot and NB12 starts now. Topping news tonight with debate on the budget officially wrapped up. Government is now shifting its focus to the much anticipated and controversial gaming bill. Tourism Minister Obi Wilshcombe confirmed web shop regulations are set to be tabled in Parliament as part of the amended bill and revealed what the public can expect. Dana Smith reports.
Tourism Minister Obi Wilshcombe said legislation to regulate the web shop industry will be tabled in the House of Assembly next week. Wilshcombe said key questions about taxes and the number of web shop licenses to be granted will be discussed in the coming weeks. Wilshcombe also said the move is not meant to disrespect the vote of the people. He explained the government has to govern, and this is the best approach.
The truth is it took a lot of work. We've had a lot of consultants working on it. International consultants, local consultants. We've had to meet with all the players in the game, whether it's the casino operators or the web shop owners. We've had to meet with the banks. We've had to meet and talk with representatives from international agencies who are concerned about money laundering and how the web shops are used or abused. And so all the questions had to be answered.
The gaming bill was tabled in the House of Assembly last October, with debate expected to begin a few weeks later. But the government's decision to regulate and tax web shops saw the process delayed, much to the frustration of the country's casino operators who pushed for the quick passage of the gaming bill, which they said would modernize the industry and allow the Bahamas to compete on a global scale. Well, Wilshcombe said the bill took considerable work and the government wanted to ensure it got it right.
What we wanted to do was to ensure that when we get to the table, we're coming to the table with a piece of legislation that will, one, ensure the integrity of gaming in the Bahamas, and two, ensure that there is a relationship that can be had, or a coexistence of the casino operators and also the web shop operators. There's no clash, and also to ensure that we maintain the integrity of gaming in the Bahamas. That's very important to us.
Wilshcombe had called for the temporary closures of the web shops until the industry is regulated. But he said today the government's consultants have advised him it's unnecessary. But he will have a definitive answer by next week. And noting criticisms over the amount of projected revenue to be gained, some $12 million, Wilshcombe explained that figure was suggested by the government's consultants and it's still being worked out, as are potential penalties. Wilshcombe also said the government has yet to determine how many licenses will be granted, although he still personally believes that number should be 8.
When the accountants went to the look to provide an audit of the various companies, well, we have to base our earnings on their earnings, and so we're looking at that, and then we'll determine the number of web shop licenses to be given, together with whatever the taxes, and also a penalty for the illegal operation when it was illegal, so we have to penalize them for about 6 years. All that's a part of what we're doing.
The government has been harshly criticized for its decision to bring forward web shop regulation, despite the results of the January 2013 gambling referendum, where the majority of voters said no to the regulation and taxation of the web shop industry. Bahamas Christian Council President Dr. Ranford Patterson, who led Vote No efforts, has already said he will not vote in upcoming referenda as a result of the government's move. And former PLP Cabinet Minister Loftus Roker has called for the Prime Minister's resignation for spending more than $1 million on a referendum and then going against the results. Wilchcombe said the government respects the vote of the people and understands the opposition to gaming, but the government cannot continue to ignore the country's web shops, which have proven resilient.
I think we respect the vote of the people, and we always will respect the vote of the people. There's nothing that says we don't. We do. And we do respect the fact that many Bahamians will have a difficulty with the web shop, but we have to regularize a system that's existed forever. We're not doing anything new. All we're seeking to do is put some regularization into it. The truth is, we are not saying to the Bahamian people, we disrespect your position. No, we're saying to the Bahamian people we have a system that requires some regulations. We're saying to the Bahamian people that we are at the moment seeing a number of issues raised, say by the Central Bank of the Bahamas. We're also talking about the international agencies who are raising questions about money laundering, and so we have to address it. We cannot continue to ignore it. Well, truth is, can we shut them down effectively? Well, the answer we've received has been no. The truth is, the best approach is to regularize and then monitor, control, and ensure that there's some revenue to be had from it.
Reporting for NB12, I'm Dana Smith.
And despite some clearing banks' reluctance to do business with web shops, even after government regulates that industry, Attorney General Allison Maynard Gibson says she is confident banks will take web shops' money. Maynard Gibson also indicated that the government would impose some type of penalty on the revenue web shops generated prior to regulation.
So I have every confidence that while gaming and also including web shops is fully regularized in the Bahamas, that the Bahamians who work in those institutions, just like in Canada, will be able to put their money in banks in the Bahamas.
Despite the Attorney General's confidence, at least 2 banks have voiced strong concern in recent weeks about web shops meeting international standards even after they're regulated. Commonwealth Bank President Ian Jennings told NB12 last month it may be difficult for local banks to handle web shops' money without the Bahamas facing damaging reputational risks.
I think that what Mr. Jennings was alluding to is the importance of us ensuring that whatever legislative framework that we put in place and also the support of that legislative framework is able to withstand international AML, anti-money laundering, and CFT, counter-financing of terrorism scrutiny.
During his contribution to the budget debate, Prime Minister Perry Christie told parliamentarians that government will consult with the Financial Action Task Force to ensure that the gaming bill and procedures will be in compliance with FATF guidelines to ensure banks can accept web shop proceeds. Besides, Maynard Gibson insisted that Canada hasn't encountered that problem.
I am aware, as we are all aware, that in Canada, gaming is conducted. Gaming that is regularized is conducted, that persons who work in those institutions that are regularized in Canada receive money from those institutions, those casinos, those gaming institutions. They put their salaries, etc., into banks in Canada.
But what about money web shops make before they're regularized?
That is something that, as the Prime Minister has indicated that we are benchmarking other jurisdictions. This is not the first time that what is called an underground economy has been regularized, and so we are studying what has happened in other jurisdictions. I think it's fair to say that there'll be some type of penalty that must be paid, because what we're seeing so far is that's what happens so far when these institutions are regularized.
In other news, Minister of State for National Security Keith Bell has asserted that there should be consequences for those parliamentarians who have failed to comply with the law and make their financial disclosures, and suggested if government isn't prepared to enforce certain laws, they should take it off the books. Bell told NB12 today that he has submitted his declarations and insisted that members of Parliament have an obligation that should be fulfilled.
That I have made my public disclosures. And obviously, it's an obligation on all members of Parliament. I think that as members of Parliament, we have an obligation. If that is the requirement of the law, then we should all fulfill it. If that it isn't fulfilled, then there should be some degree of there should be some consequences. whether or not there ought to be an independent body which looks to enforce certain things for certain ministers or certain sectors of the society, independent of politicians, then that's another case. But as far as I'm concerned, I am within the law.
Bell's comments come 1 week after Free National Movement leader Dr. Hubert Minnis suggested that parliamentarians who fail to disclose should be arrested.
Any law that is on the books and it isn't carried out, it is reduced to bluff and it is ineffective. So either it need to be changed, or it need to be taken off the books, or it need to be simply enforced. It's as simple as that.
And the Disclosure Act is a part of that.
The Disclosure Act is definitely part of that.
That being said, Bell said disclosing is a very complicated process that needs to be simplified, noting that he was forced to resubmit his paperwork on several occasions back in 2012.
And so I submitted all of my bank records, I submitted all of my bank accounts, my assets, and they sent the form back to me on 10 occasions. 10 occasions. And so what I had to do was I went down to the office and I hand delivered the form and I had them stamped as having delivered my form. But because if you don't dot your I's and cross your T's, or they request this piece of information or they don't see that, they will not accept the form. And that is what happened to me personally. So I cannot say if that has happened to these guys, but they are very, very particular. Attorney
General Allison Maynard Gibson would not comment when pressed on whether authorities should take action against those MPs who haven't made their public disclosures, only saying the Public Disclosure Commission must be allowed to do its job, and she is confident MPs will comply. Meantime, leaders of the Democratic National Alliance are calling on Prime Minister Perry Christie to initiate action against those parliamentarians who have failed to make their public disclosures by reporting them to the Commissioner of Police and Attorney General instead of allowing lawlessness to prevail. DNA leader Granville McCartney says Christie's recent assertion that he will cause MPs to disclose isn't enough, insisting it's time to act.
Well, we in the DNA, we're calling on the Prime Minister of this country to do a total review, if he's not done so, if he's not read his report that he should have had from last year and this year, to ensure, because it is public disclosure, that he comes back to the Bahamian people and he indicates those who have not disclosed, and that he indicates that he will carry out the law under the Public Disclosure Act, more particularly under Section 8 of the Public Disclosure Act, and report the findings to the Attorney General or the Commissioner of Police.
McCartney says Christie should also tell Bahamians whether he has disclosed. He says Bahamians have the right to know parliamentarians' financial information, asserting that a number of politicians enter Parliament broke and leave millionaires.
We have persons who get into politics for the wrong reasons. We have persons who get into the political arena to become members of Parliament to make money for themselves. We have members of Parliament sitting today who went into the government broke as the day is long and are now millionaires.
DNA Deputy Leader Chris Mortimer says this issue underscores the importance of the Freedom of Information Act with a whistleblower component.
We will also be looking to enhance the disclosure component of our law and also the implementation of a recall system. As you can see, there are a number of instances around where we have politicians, whether it's disclosure, who have basically indicated that they've been in breach of the law, and there is no system in which we can recall them for this blatant breach of the law.
Failure to disclose could result in a fine of up to $10,000 and/or up to 2 years in prison.